In the year 2347, humanity had finally punched its ticket to the stars. After centuries of looking up at the night sky with wonder and longing, Earth's people were now part of an interstellar community, a sprawling network of alien civilizations that stretched across galaxies. But being invited to the table didn't mean they were welcomed. To most of the older, more advanced species, humans were newcomers, clumsy, noisy, and hopelessly behind in almost every way. The Grand Council Chamber on Valera was a sight to behold. Its walls shimmered like liquid crystal, reflecting light in colors no human eye could fully process. Strange symbols floated in midair, glowing faintly as if alive. Representatives from dozens of alien races filled the room, their forms ranging from towering insectoids to floating orbs of energy. Each delegate carried themselves with an air of quiet confidence, their movements precise and calculated. And then there were the humans, awkward, fidgety, and painfully out of place. Captain Elena Vega stood near the back of the chamber, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. She was tall for a human, with sharp features and dark eyes that missed nothing. Her uniform, a simple gray jumpsuit adorned with Earth's insignia, was plain compared to the elaborate robes and metallic armor worn by others. But what she lacked in appearance, she made up for in presence. Elena exuded calm authority, even when surrounded by beings who seemed to look down on her kind. Elena glanced around the room again, trying not to let her unease show. Something about this whole situation felt wrong. The Valerans, the hosts of the peace accord ceremony, were polite enough, but their smiles were too wide, their gestures too rehearsed. They spoke warmly of unity and cooperation, yet whenever Elena or another member of the human delegation asked specific questions about the treaty's terms, the answers came wrapped in vague assurances. It was maddening. "They're hiding something," muttered Commander Raj Patel, standing beside her. He adjusted his glasses nervously, a habit he'd never managed to break despite years in space. "I don't trust these guys." "Neither do I," Elena replied under her breath. "But we don't have much choice. If we walk away now, we'll be branded as isolationists." "We can't afford to cut ourselves off from the rest of the galaxy," Raj frowned. "Still, doesn't it strike you as odd? Why go through all this effort just to include us? We're not exactly power players here." Before Elena could respond, a soft chime echoed through the chamber, signaling the start of the ceremony. All heads turned toward the central dais, where a group of Valoran leaders stood waiting. Their translucent bodies shimmered faintly, giving them an ethereal quality. One of them stepped forward, raising a delicate, multi-jointed limb in greeting. "Welcome, honored guests," the leader said in perfectly accented Galactic Standard, the universal language of diplomacy. "Today marks a new chapter in our shared history, a time of peace, understanding, and mutual prosperity. With the signing of the peace accord, we will forge bonds stronger than any starship or weapon." Elena listened carefully, her brow furrowing slightly. The words sounded noble, but something about the tone set her teeth on edge. It wasn't quite condescending, but close, like a teacher praising a particularly slow student. She noticed several other delegates exchanging knowing looks, their expressions smug. Clearly, they weren't taking humanity seriously. As the ceremony progressed, Elena found herself zoning out, focusing instead on small details. The way the Valerans avoided direct eye contact with the humans, the subtle tension in the air, as though everyone was waiting for something to happen. And then there was the document itself, the actual treaty written in flowing script that seemed to shift and change depending on how you looked at it. When it was finally time for the humans to sign, Elena approached the daisy with cautious steps. As she leaned over the glowing tablet to press her thumbprint, a sudden wave of dizziness washed over her. For a brief moment, the world tilted sideways, and she thought she heard a low hum, like distant machinery powering up. Then it was gone, leaving only a faint ringing in her ears. "What was that?" Raj whispered urgently as she rejoined him. "I don't know," Elena admitted, rubbing her temples, "but I don't like it." Her suspicions deepened later that evening during a private meeting with Ambassador Kale, one of the few aliens who had shown genuine interest in humanity. Over a cup of steaming blue tea, Kale leaned closer, his voice barely audible. "Captain Vega," he began, his tone unusually grave, "be careful. The peace accord is not what it seems. Trust your instincts, you are right to feel uneasy." Before Elena could ask what he meant, Kale abruptly excused himself, disappearing into the crowd. Left alone with her thoughts, Elena realized the truth. The treaty wasn't a gift. It was a trap. Whatever the Valerans had planned, humanity was walking straight into it. And yet, as she stared out at the glittering skyline of the alien city, a small smile tugged at the corners of her lips. If the Valerans thought they could underestimate humanity, they were in for a rude awakening. Because while humans might not have the flashiest ships or the most advanced technology, they had something far more powerful: ingenuity, resilience, and an unshakable belief in their ability to overcome anything. Little did the Valerans know, humanity had come armed, not with weapons, but with heart. The next morning, Captain Elena Vega woke to the sound of alarms blaring through the human delegation's quarters. Her heart raced as she bolted upright in bed, her mind instantly alert. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. She threw on her uniform and rushed out into the corridor where chaos reigned. Members of her team ran back and forth, shouting updates that barely made sense. "What's happening?" Elena demanded, grabbing hold of Commander Raj Patel as he sprinted past her. "It's the treaty," Raj panted, his face pale. "It's alive." Elena froze for a moment, certain she'd misheard him. "Alive? What do you mean?" He pointed toward the main conference hall, where the glowing tablet they had signed the previous day now hovered ominously above its pedestal. The once beautiful script had transformed into pulsating lines of light, writhing like living creatures. Worse still, the device seemed to be emitting a faint hum that resonated deep within their chests, making it hard to think clearly. "We tried to shut it down," Raj explained quickly, "but nothing works. It's overriding every system we have, and get this, it's broadcasting some kind of signal." Elena didn't waste another second. Together with Raj and two other members of her team, Dr. Mei Lin, their xenobiologist, and Lieutenant Marcus Kane, their security officer, they hurried to the conference hall. As they entered, the sight before them confirmed their worst fears. The alien delegates were gathered around the tablet, whispering anxiously among themselves while casting suspicious glances at the humans. One of the Valeran leaders stepped forward, addressing the room with an icy calmness. "This is most unfortunate," he said, his voice carrying a note of accusation. "It appears your species has tampered with the peace accord. This anomaly originated from your signature." A murmur rippled through the crowd, and several pairs of alien eyes turned toward the humans, glaring with hostility. Elena clenched her fists, forcing herself to remain composed despite the weight of their stares. She knew better than to react impulsively, not when so much was at stake. "That's impossible," she replied firmly, stepping forward. "We followed the instructions exactly as given. If there's been tampering, it wasn't by us." The Valeran tilted his head slightly, his shimmering form catching the light in unsettling ways. "Then explain why the document reacts only to your presence." Before Elena could respond, Dr. Mei Lin spoke up, her tone measured but urgent. "With all due respect, perhaps we should focus on solving the problem rather than assigning blame. Whatever this thing is, it's affecting everyone here, including you." Her words brought a brief pause to the tension in the room. Even the Valerans exchanged uncertain looks, clearly unsettled by the situation. Seizing the opportunity, Elena gestured toward the tablet. "Let us examine it. We may not have your level of technology, but we're resourceful. Give us a chance." To help, there was a long silence as the aliens deliberated. Finally, one of them, a towering insectoid creature with iridescent wings, spoke up. "Very well. But if this fails, the consequences will fall upon your people." Elena nodded grimly. Failure wasn't an option. Back in their lab, the human team worked feverishly to analyze the tablet. Dr. Mei Lin ran scans using portable equipment, while Raj and Marcus pored over data streams, searching for patterns. Elena paced nearby, her mind racing with possibilities. "This thing isn't just a document," May announced after several tense minutes. It's some kind of organic construct, a hybrid of biological and technological components. That's why it reacts to stimuli. Like our signatures? Raj asked, frowning. Exactly, May confirmed. But here's the strange part, it seems to be adapting. Every time someone interacts with it, it evolves further. Elena's stomach sank. So it's learning? Yes, May said gravely. And I'm afraid it might already know too much about us. At that moment, Lieutenant Kane let out a sharp gasp. He was hunched over a monitor, his expression somewhere between disbelief and awe. You need to see this, he said, motioning for the others to join him. On the screen was a visual representation of the tablet's internal structure. What started as a simple network of connections had grown exponentially more complex since they began studying it. Lines branched outward like roots, forming intricate patterns that pulsed with energy. At the center of it all was a dense cluster of activity, and embedded within that cluster was something unmistakably human. It's replicating our DNA, Kane said quietly. Not just ours, everyone who signed the treaty, but ours is dominant. Somehow, Elena felt a chill run down her spine. The implications were staggering. The Valerons hadn't invited humanity to join the galactic community out of goodwill. They had used the treaty as a Trojan horse to harvest genetic information. Why, she couldn't yet say, but whatever their plan was, it couldn't be good. We need to neutralize it, Raj said firmly. If we can disrupt its core processes, maybe we can stop it from spreading, May shook her head. It's not that simple. Look at how deeply integrated it is with the rest of the systems. Shutting it down could trigger a cascade effect. We might lose control entirely. For a moment, no one spoke. The enormity of the task ahead weighed heavily on them. Then Elena straightened, determination etched across her face. We'll find a way. Humanity doesn't give up. That's what makes us different. Inspired by her resolve, the team dove back into their work with renewed vigor. Hours passed in a blur of calculations, experiments, and heated debates. Just when frustration threatened to overwhelm them, May stumbled upon a breakthrough. I think I've found a vulnerability, she said excitedly. Its adaptive nature means it relies heavily on external input to evolve. If we overload it with conflicting signals, it might short-circuit itself, Raj finished, his eyes lighting up. Elena smiled, a rare flicker of hope amidst the tension. Do it! As the team prepared to execute their plan, word spread quickly among the alien delegates. Some watched with skepticism, others with outright hostility. But a few, like Ambassador Kale, seemed genuinely intrigued by the humans' ingenuity. When the final step was ready, Elena addressed the assembled crowd. This isn't just our fight anymore, she declared. Whatever happens next affects all of us. Stand with us, or stand aside. To her surprise, a handful of aliens moved closer, offering assistance. For the first time since arriving on Velora, humanity wasn't alone. With the combined efforts of humans and their newfound allies, the plan succeeded. The tablet shuddered violently before collapsing inward, its glow fading until it was nothing more than a lifeless slab of crystal. A collective sigh of relief swept through the room, but the victory was short-lived, because as the dust settled, one question remained unanswered. Why had the Valerons done this? And what did they intend to do next? Little did anyone realize. The true challenge was only beginning, the aftermath of the tablets. Collapse left the Grand Council chamber in uneasy silence. The humans stood at the center of the room, their faces flushed with a mixture of exhaustion and triumph. Around them, alien delegates exchanged wary glances, some muttering under their breath while others simply stared in disbelief. For a species so often dismissed as primitive, humanity had just demonstrated an ingenuity that no one, not even the Valerons, had anticipated. Captain Elena Vega took a deep breath, steadying herself before addressing the crowd once more. That was a close call, she began, her voice firm but calm. But it doesn't change the fact that we're dealing with something far bigger than any of us realized. This wasn't just a treaty. It was a weapon disguised as diplomacy. Her words hung heavy in the air, prompting murmurs of agreement from a few aliens who had witnessed the humans' resourcefulness firsthand. Among them was Ambassador Kale, whose translucent form seemed to shimmer faintly as he stepped forward. "Captain Vega is right," he said, his tone carrying authority despite his usual quiet demeanor. "We cannot ignore what has transpired. Here, the Valerans have betrayed not only your trust, but ours as well." The accusation sent ripples through the assembly. Several Valeran leaders shifted uncomfortably, their expressions unreadable beneath their shimmering exteriors. One of them finally spoke up, his voice laced with forced patience. "This is preposterous. You accuse us without evidence." The anomaly originated from their signature. Is clear where the fault lies. Elena turned to face him, her dark eyes unwavering. "And yet you designed the document. You engineered its adaptive systems. Don't pretend you didn't know exactly what would happen when we signed it." The room erupted into chaos as accusations flew back and forth. Some aliens sided with the humans, pointing out the suspicious behavior of the Valerans during the ceremony. Others remained loyal to the hosts, unwilling to believe such a respected civilization could orchestrate such deception. Amidst the discord, Elena noticed something curious. Many of the alien species present were divided among themselves, their unity crumbling under the weight of suspicion and fear. "Enough!" bellowed a towering insectoid delegate, raising all 6 of its limbs to command attention. The room fell silent as every eye turned toward the imposing figure. "Arguing will get us nowhere. What matters now is determining the next steps. Humanity has proven capable of handling this crisis, at least temporarily, but they cannot do it alone. We must decide whether to work together or descend into chaos." His words struck a chord, forcing everyone to confront the reality of their situation. The Valerans weren't the only ones hiding secrets. Nearly every species in the room had come to the treaty negotiations with their own agendas. Trust, it seemed, was a rare commodity in the galaxy. Back in the human delegation's quarters, the team gathered around a makeshift conference table littered with datapads and half-empty cups of coffee. Despite their success in neutralizing the tablet, none of them looked particularly relieved. The challenge ahead loomed larger than ever. "We stopped the immediate threat," Raj Patel said, rubbing his temples, "but we still don't know what the Valerans wanted with our DNA or why they targeted us specifically." "It's obvious, isn't it?" Lieutenant Marcus Kane interjected, leaning forward with intensity. "They see us as weak, easy prey. They probably thought they could use our genetic material to create some kind of weapon or biological advantage." Dr. Mei Lin frowned, shaking her head. "I'm not so sure. Their technology is light years ahead of ours. They don't need weapons derived from human biology. There's something else going on here, something deeper." Elena nodded slowly, her mind racing. "May's right, this feels personal. Like they were testing us, not just our capabilities, but our character. Maybe even our resilience." As if on cue, the door slid open, revealing Ambassador Kale. His presence startled the group, but Elena quickly motioned for him to enter. "Ambassador," she greeted, her tone polite but cautious, "what brings you here?" Kale hesitated for a moment before speaking. "I owe you an explanation and perhaps an apology. My people have suspected the Valerans of ulterior motives for some time, but we lacked proof. When I warned you yesterday, I hoped you might uncover the truth." "I did not expect you to act so decisively," Elena raised an eyebrow. "So you knew about the tablet? About the risks?" "Not entirely," Kale admitted, "but we knew enough to be wary. The Valerans have long resented humanity's inclusion in galactic affairs. To them, your rise represents a disruption to the natural order, a challenge to their dominance." Marcus snorted. "Sounds like jealousy to me." "Perhaps," Kale conceded, "but it runs deeper than that. Your species embodies qualities they find unsettling. Creativity, adaptability, determination traits they view as unpredictable and dangerous. By isolating you, or worse, they seek to preserve their control over the galaxy." The revelation hit the team like a tidal wave. For years, humanity had struggled to prove itself worthy of a seat at the interstellar table. Now, they realized their greatest strength, their humanity, was also their biggest liability in the eyes of those who sought to dominate. "What do we do now?" May asked softly, breaking the somber silence. Elena stood, her expression resolute. We fight back. Not with weapons, but with what makes us unique. Empathy, collaboration, innovation. If the Valerans want to test us, let's show them exactly who we are. Her words ignited a spark within the group. Over the next several hours, they devised a bold plan. Using the data recovered from the tablet, they would analyze its structure to identify vulnerabilities in Valeran technology. At the same time, they reached out to the alien delegates who had shown solidarity, forming alliances based on mutual trust rather than fear. It wasn't easy. Many aliens remained hesitant, their centuries-old biases difficult to overcome. But slowly, cracks began to form in the walls of distrust. Stories of human perseverance spread throughout the assembly, inspiring others to reconsider their assumptions. Even the insectoid delegate who had called for unity earlier agreed to lend his support, citing humanity's actions as proof that cooperation was possible. Meanwhile, tensions with the Valerans continued to escalate. Their attempts to deflect blame grew increasingly desperate, and their once polished facade began to crack. It became clear that they had underestimated humanity and the ripple effects of that miscalculation were spreading faster than they could contain. By the end of the day, Elena stood on the balcony of their quarters, gazing out at the glittering cityscape below. Behind her, the team worked tirelessly, their spirits buoyed by the knowledge that they weren't fighting alone anymore. For the first time since arriving on Valera, she allowed herself a small smile. The road ahead would be fraught with challenges. But one thing was certain. Humanity had proven it wouldn't go down without a fight. And in doing so, they had planted the seeds of hope, not just for themselves, but for all those willing to stand beside them. Little did anyone realize, the true battle was about to begin. The days that followed were a blur of tension and discovery. Humanity's unexpected alliance with several alien species had shifted the balance of power in subtle but significant ways. The Valerans, however, were not idle. Their once cordial demeanor had given way to thinly veiled hostility, their every move calculated to undermine the growing coalition of resistance. Captain Elena Vega knew they were running out of time. Whatever plan the Valerans had been working toward was reaching its final stages, and if humanity didn't act soon, the consequences could be catastrophic. It was late into the night when Elena finally called an emergency meeting with her team. The room buzzed with quiet energy as everyone gathered around the holographic display table, projecting schematics and data streams collected from the remnants of the tablet. Dr. Mei Lin stood closest to the projection, pointing out critical details with precision. This isn't just about DNA, Mei explained, her voice steady despite the weight of what she was saying. The tablet wasn't harvesting genetic material for weapons, it was building profiles. Psychological, cultural, even emotional patterns. They're mapping us, not just physically, but mentally. Elena frowned, leaning closer to examine the glowing diagrams. So they're trying to understand how we think, to predict our actions? Exactly, May confirmed. And worse, they've already started using that information against us? Look at this. She tapped a sequence on her datapad, and the hologram shifted to show intercepted communications between the Valerans and other factions. Phrases like human unpredictability and emotional volatility appeared repeatedly. Alongside strategic recommendations for exploiting those traits, Commander Raj Patel let out a low whistle. They're playing mind games, trying to turn our strengths as our empathy, creativity, adaptability into weaknesses. Lieutenant Marcus Kane crossed his arms, his expression grim. Then we need to flip the script. Use their tactics against them. Before anyone could respond, the door slid open, revealing Ambassador Kale. His translucent form seemed dimmer than usual, his movements slower and more deliberate. It was clear he carried bad news. The situation is escalating, Kale began without preamble. The Valerans have called for an emergency session of the Council. They claim humanity's interference has destabilized galactic peace and are demanding sanctions, or worse. Elena felt her stomach tighten. Sanctions won't stop them. This is about control. If they succeed, they'll isolate Earth and Dismantle any alliances we've built, Kale nodded gravely. Which is why you must act now. Prove their accusations false before they gain enough support to silence you permanently. The next morning, the Grand Council chamber was packed with delegates, the air thick with anticipation. The Valoran leaders stood at the center of the dais, their shimmering forms radiating authority as they addressed the assembly. One by one, they listed grievances against humanity, accusing them of recklessness, arrogance, and endangering interstellar stability. Each accusation was met with murmurs of agreement from some corners of the room, while others remained silent, their expressions unreadable. When it was finally Elena's turn to speak, she stepped forward with quiet confidence. Every eye in the room turned toward her, and for a moment the weight of their scrutiny threatened to overwhelm her. But then she remembered why she was there, not just for herself, but for all of humanity. You accuse us of being reckless, Elena began, her voice carrying clearly across the chamber. But the real recklessness lies in your actions. You engineered a trap disguised as diplomacy, hoping to exploit our trust. When that failed, you doubled down, spreading lies to divide us further. A ripple of unease spread through the crowd. As Elena continued, we are not perfect, none of us are. But unlike you, we admit our flaws and work to overcome them. That's what makes us strong, that's what makes us human. Her words struck a chord, eliciting nods of approval from several alien delegates. Encouraged, Elena pressed on. You claim to seek unity, yet your methods sow discord. You fear change because it challenges your dominance. But progress cannot exist without risk, and growth cannot happen without trust. As she spoke, the Valoran leaders exchanged uneasy glances, their composure slipping ever so slightly. For the first time, cracks began to appear in their carefully constructed facade. Sensing their vulnerability, Elena delivered the final blow. We know what you're doing, she said, her tone firm but measured. You've been studying us, trying to predict our every move. But here's the thing, you can't anticipate everything. Because no matter how much data you collect, you'll never truly understand what drives us. Our capacity for hope, our refusal to give up, our belief in a better future for everyone. The chamber erupted into chaos as delegates argued over her declaration. Some sided with the Valorans, accusing Elena of exaggeration. Others openly praised her courage, vowing to stand with humanity. Amidst the commotion, Ambassador Kale approached the dais, his presence commanding immediate attention. She speaks the truth, Kale announced, his voice ringing out above the din. The Valorans have betrayed the very principles they claim to uphold. If we allow this deception to continue, we forfeit our integrity as a galactic community. His words ignited a tidal wave of debate, forcing the assembly to confront uncomfortable truths. Even those who had initially doubted humanity began to question their allegiances. The Valorans, realizing they were losing ground, attempted to regain control by calling for a vote, but it was too late. The tide had turned later that evening. Elena sat alone on the balcony of their quarters, staring out at the alien cityscape bathed in twilight hues. The day's events replayed in her mind, each victory tempered by the knowledge that the battle was far from over. Still, there was a sense of hope, a fragile but undeniable spark that had been reignited not just within her team, but among their newfound allies. Behind her, footsteps signaled the approach of Lieutenant Kane. He paused beside her, offering a small smile. You did good today, Captain, real good. Elena returned the smile faintly. It's not over yet, but maybe, just maybe, we've shown them something worth fighting for. Kane nodded, his gaze drifting toward the horizon. Yeah, and if nothing else, we prove that humanity isn't just a name, it's a promise. In that moment, Elena realized the turning point wasn't just about strategy or alliances. It was about identity, about showing the galaxy that humanity's greatest strength lay not in its technology or resources, but in its heart. And though the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, she knew one thing for certain. They wouldn't face it alone. The days following the council session were a whirlwind of activity, both within the human delegation and among their growing coalition of allies. The Valerans, stung by the exposure of their deception, retreated into a defensive posture, withdrawing from open negotiations while quietly rallying support behind closed doors. Their once unified front began to fracture as more alien species questioned their motives, and humanity's role in galactic affairs grew stronger with each passing hour. Captain Elena Vega stood at the center of it all, her leadership tested like never before. Every decision she made carried immense weight, not just for Earth but for the fragile alliances they had forged. She spent long hours strategizing with her team, analyzing intercepted communications and coordinating with their newfound partners. Despite the mounting pressure, Elena remained resolute, drawing strength from the unwavering determination of those around her. It was during one such meeting that Commander Raj Patel brought up an alarming discovery. "We've been monitoring Valeran transmissions," he explained, pointing to a series of encrypted messages displayed on the holographic table. "They're preparing something big, something that involves the same adaptive technology used in the tablet." Dr. Mei Lin frowned, leaning closer to examine the data. "If they've repurposed that tech, it could mean anything? A weapon? A psychological attack? Or worse, a way to manipulate entire populations?" Elena's jaw tightened. "Whatever it is, we can't let them deploy it. Not without knowing what we're dealing with." Lieutenant Marcus Kane chimed in, his tone urgent. "We need to strike first, not violently, but strategically. Show them we're onto their game before they can act." Before anyone could respond, Ambassador Kale entered the room, his translucent form shimmering faintly in the dim light. His expression was grim, his movements slower than usual. "I bring troubling news," he said without preamble. "The Valerans have called for another emergency session tomorrow. They plan to present evidence against your species, fabricated, no doubt, but convincing enough to sway undecided factions." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. "Then we'll counter them with proof of our own. We've got data showing their manipulation of the treaty. If we expose it publicly—" "It won't be enough," Kale interrupted gently. "They've prepared extensively for this moment. What you need is something unexpected, something that forces them to reveal their true intentions." For a moment, silence hung heavy in the air. Then Elena's eyes lit up with realization. "That's it," she murmured, turning to face her team. "We don't fight their narrative head-on, we change the story entirely." The next morning, the Grand Council chamber buzzed with anticipation. Delegates filled the seats, their expressions ranging from curiosity to outright hostility. The Valeran leaders stood confidently at the dais, flanked by supporters who eagerly awaited their presentation. As the session began, one of the Valerans stepped forward. Addressing the assembly with practiced eloquence, "Honored delegates," he began, his voice smooth and commanding. "Today, we present irrefutable evidence of humanity's reckless behavior and its threat to galactic stability. Behold," but before he could activate the display, Captain Elena Vega rose from her seat, cutting him off mid-sentence. Her sudden interruption drew startled gasps from the crowd, but she didn't falter. Instead, she walked steadily toward the center of the room, her presence commanding immediate attention. "With respect," she said, her voice calm yet firm, "before you hear their so-called evidence, I ask you to consider something else. Something real." Without waiting for permission, Elena signaled to Dr. Mei Lin, who activated a holographic projection above the dais. The image showed a detailed breakdown of the tablet structure, highlighting its adaptive mechanisms and the ways it had harvested genetic profiles. But instead of focusing solely on the technical aspects, Elena shifted the narrative. "This isn't just about technology," she continued, gesturing to the projection. "It's about trust or the lack thereof. When we signed the treaty, we believed in its promise of unity. Instead, we were betrayed. Betrayed by those who claimed to champion peace but sought only control." Her words resonated deeply, eliciting nods of agreement from many in the audience. Encouraged, Elena pressed on. "But here's the thing, the Valerans underestimated us. They thought they could predict our every move, exploit our emotions, and divide us from within. What they failed to understand is that humanity thrives under pressure. That when faced with adversity, we come together not because we're perfect, but because we care. As she spoke, Lieutenant Kane distributed small devices to key delegates throughout the room. At Elena's signal, these devices emitted a low-frequency pulse designed to disrupt the Valerans' neural implants, the very tools they use to subtly influence others' thoughts and decisions. The effect was immediate. Several alien delegates blinked in confusion, their expressions shifting from skepticism to clarity. "You've been manipulated," Elena declared, her voice rising with conviction. "Not just by us, but by them? They've played you all along, using fear and division to maintain their grip on power. Isn't it time we stopped letting them?" The chamber erupted into chaos as delegates turned accusingly toward the Valeran leaders, demanding answers. For the first time, cracks appeared in their polished facade. One of them attempted to regain control, shouting over the din, but his words fell flat. The damage was done. Ambassador Kale seized the opportunity, stepping forward to address the assembly. "This is your chance," he said, his voice ringing out above the noise. "To choose a new path, one built on transparency, collaboration, and mutual respect. Humanity has shown us what true resilience looks like. Will you stand with them or remain complicit in this charade?" The question hung heavy in the air, forcing every delegate to confront their own beliefs and biases. Slowly but surely, the tide began to turn. Even some former skeptics raised their voices in support of humanity, acknowledging the courage and ingenuity they had displayed. Yet even as the momentum shifted, Elena knew the fight wasn't over. The Valerans wouldn't surrender easily. They still held secrets, weapons, and resources far beyond humanity's reach. But for the first time since arriving on Velora, Elena felt a glimmer of hope. Hope that the galaxy might finally see humanity not as a threat, but as an ally, and hope that, together, they could forge a future worth fighting for. The aftermath of the council session was a storm of activity, both inside and outside the Grand Chamber. The Valerans, cornered and exposed, retreated into their stronghold, a towering crystalline spire at the heart of the alien city. From there, they issued terse statements through intermediaries, denying all accusations while simultaneously threatening retaliation against those who dared oppose them. Yet despite their bluster, cracks in their dominance were widening. Humanity's bold actions had ignited a wave of skepticism among the other species, forcing many to question everything they thought they knew about the Valerans. Back in the human delegation's quarters, Captain Elena Vega paced anxiously, her mind racing with possibilities. The team gathered around her, their expressions reflecting a mix of exhaustion and determination. They had won a significant victory, but none of them believed it would be enough to end the conflict. "They're planning something big," Commander Raj Patel said, breaking the tense silence. "All this talk about peace treaties and unity, it's just a smokescreen. Whatever they're building, it's going to hit hard." Dr. Mei Lin nodded grimly, pointing to a series of intercepted transmissions displayed on the holographic table. "These signals are coming from deep within their spire. It looks like they've weaponized the same adaptive technology we saw in the tablet, but on a much larger scale." Lieutenant Marcus Kane clenched his fists, frustration evident in his voice. "We can't let them deploy whatever they're working on. If that tech gets loose..." Elena stopped pacing, her dark eyes narrowing as she turned to face her team. "Then we go straight to the source. We infiltrate the spire, find out what they're planning, and shut it down before they can use it." The room fell silent for a moment, the weight of her words sinking in. Ambassador Kale, who had been observing quietly from the corner, stepped forward. "An infiltration mission is risky not just for you, but for everyone involved. If you're caught, the consequences could undo everything you've achieved so far." "We don't have a choice," Elena replied firmly. "If we wait for them to make the first move, we'll lose. This is our chance to take control, to show them that humanity doesn't back down when the stakes are highest." Her resolve inspired the others. Over the next few hours, they devised a daring plan. Using data recovered from the tablet and insights provided by their alien allies, They identified weak points in the spire's defenses, areas where its advanced systems might be vulnerable to human creativity. Dr. May Lin developed a prototype device capable of disrupting the spire's neural network, while Lieutenant Kane coordinated with several allied species to create diversions elsewhere in the city. Meanwhile, Elena prepared herself mentally for the most dangerous mission of her life. That night, under the cover of darkness, the infiltration team moved swiftly through the alien metropolis. The spire loomed ahead, its shimmering surface reflecting the glow of distant stars. Elena led the group, flanked by Marcus and two trusted volunteers from their Coalition 1, a winged amphibian named Zern, the other an energy-based entity called Leora. Each member carried specialized equipment designed to bypass the spire's defenses. As they approached the base of the structure, Elena activated a cloaking field developed by Dr. Mei Lin, rendering them invisible to surveillance drones patrolling the area. Heart-pounding, she guided the team toward a maintenance hatch located near the foundation. With careful precision, Marcus disabled the locking mechanism, allowing them access to the interior. Inside, the spire was eerily quiet, its corridors lined with pulsating veins of light that seemed alive. Every step echoed ominously, heightening the tension. As they ascended deeper into the facility, they encountered increasingly sophisticated security measures, biometric scanners, automated sentries, and fields of shifting energy barriers. But each obstacle only fueled their determination. At one point, they narrowly avoided detection when a patrol of Valoran enforcers passed dangerously close to their position. Pressed against the wall, Elena held her breath, her pulse hammering in her ears. Beside her, Zern spread his translucent wings slightly, shielding the group with a faint distortion field that masked their presence. When the danger passed, Elena gave him a grateful nod, silently acknowledging his quick thinking. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they reached the central chamber, a vast cavernous space dominated by a massive construct suspended in midair. It resembled the tablet they had neutralized earlier, but on a colossal scale, its surface writhing with intricate patterns of light. At its core pulsed a dense cluster of energy, radiating waves of raw power. "This is it," Elena whispered, her voice barely audible. "The source of their operation." Before anyone could respond, alarms blared throughout the chamber, shattering the silence. The team froze as Valoran guards poured into the room, surrounding them with weapons drawn. For a moment, it seemed their mission had failed, but then Elena acted. "Now!" she shouted, triggering the prototype disruptor. A burst of electromagnetic energy surged outward, temporarily disabling the guards' weapons and causing the construct to shudder violently. Seizing the opportunity, Marcus and Zern engaged the remaining enforcers, using improvised tactics to hold them off while Leora interfaced directly with the construct. Attempting to dismantle its core processes, Elena focused on the task at hand, her hands moving rapidly over the controls of the disruptor. Sweat dripped down her forehead as she fought to maintain the overload sequence, knowing failure meant disaster. Just as the system began to stabilize, a voice boomed through the chamber. The lead Valoran leader, his form materializing in a shimmering projection. "You cannot stop destiny," he sneered, his tone dripping with disdain. "Your resistance is futile." Elena looked up, meeting his gaze without fear. "Destiny is written by those brave enough to shape it," she countered. "And today we write a new chapter." With a final surge of effort, the disruptor overloaded the construct, sending shockwaves rippling through the spire. Lights flickered, walls cracked, and the once mighty structure groaned under the strain. As the Valerons scrambled to regain control, Elena and her team made their escape, retreating through the chaos with their mission accomplished. When they emerged into the cool night air, cheers erupted from their allies waiting nearby. The tide had turned decisively, and the galaxy would never see humanity the same way again. In that moment, Elena realized the truth. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't its technology or ingenuity, it was its unshakable belief and hope, even in the face of impossible odds. And that belief had changed everything. The collapse of the Valoran Spire marked a turning point not just for humanity, but for the entire galaxy? In the days that followed, the once imposing structure lay in ruins, a shattered monument to ambition and hubris. Its destruction sent shockwaves through interstellar society, forcing every species to confront uncomfortable truths about power, trust, and unity. For the first time in centuries, the balance of galactic politics shifted, with humanity emerging as an unexpected beacon of hope. Captain Elena Vega stood at the edge of the wreckage, her arms crossed tightly over her chest as she gazed out at the alien cityscape bathed in the soft glow of dawn. Around her, members of her team mingled with representatives from allied species, their laughter and animated conversations filling the air with a sense of cautious optimism. Despite the exhaustion etched into her features, Elena couldn't help but feel a quiet pride swelling within her. Against all odds, they had succeeded not just in stopping the Valerans, but in proving that humanity's greatest strength lay in its heart. Ambassador Kale approached her, his translucent form shimmering faintly in the morning light. "You've done something remarkable, Captain Vega," he said, his tone carrying both admiration and respect. "Not only have you exposed the truth, but you've inspired others to believe in a better future." Elena turned to face him, a small smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "I didn't do it alone. None of us could have gotten this far without our allies and without each other." Kale nodded thoughtfully. "That is precisely why your actions matter so much. You reminded everyone here that progress isn't achieved through dominance or fear, but through collaboration and courage. It's a lesson many of us needed to hear." As they spoke, news spread quickly across the galaxy. The Valerans, stripped of their influence and credibility, retreated into isolation, their empire crumbling under the weight of their own deceit. Meanwhile, humanity's role in galactic affairs grew stronger than ever. Delegations from dozens of species arrived on Earth, eager to learn more about the planet and its people. They marveled at humanity's creativity, resilience, and boundless curiosity, qualities that had long been underestimated by those who saw only limitations. In the weeks that followed, Elena found herself reflecting on everything that had happened. The journey from being dismissed as primitive newcomers to becoming leaders in a movement for change was surreal, yet deeply meaningful. She often thought back to the moments that defined their struggle, the late-night strategizing sessions, the sacrifices made by her team, and the unwavering support of their newfound friends. Each step had brought them closer to victory, but also closer to understanding what truly united them all, a shared desire for connection and growth. One evening, as the delegation prepared to return home, Elena gathered her team for one final meeting. They sat together in the conference room, the holographic table now inactive, its surface smooth and unmarked. For a moment, no one spoke, the weight of their shared experience hanging heavy in the air. "We did it, Commander Raj," Patel finally said, breaking the silence. His voice was tinged with awe, as if he still couldn't quite believe it himself. "We actually did it." Dr. Mei Lin smiled softly, her eyes shining with emotion. "It wasn't easy, but nothing worth fighting forever is. And look how far we've come." Lieutenant Marcus Kane leaned back in his chair, shaking his head in disbelief. "Never thought I'd see the day when humans would be leading the charge for galactic peace. Guess there's a first time for everything." Elena chuckled quietly, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. "This isn't the end," she reminded them gently. "It's just the beginning. There's still so much work to do, so many bridges to build and challenges to overcome." Her words resonated deeply, prompting nods of agreement from the group. They knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Old prejudices and rivalries wouldn't disappear overnight, and new threats would inevitably arise. But for the first time, humanity wasn't facing those challenges alone. They had allies willing to stand beside them, united by a shared vision of progress and cooperation. Months later, back on Earth, Elena walked along the shores of a quiet beach near her hometown. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. As she watched the waves crash against the shore, she felt a profound sense of gratitude for her team, for their allies, and for the countless individuals who had believed in humanity's potential when others doubted. A young girl playing nearby caught her attention. She was building a sandcastle with intricate towers and bridges, her face alight with determination despite the incoming tide threatening to wash it away. Elena smiled, recognizing the same spirit that had driven her and her team forward. No matter how daunting the obstacles, humanity always found a way to rebuild, to adapt, to create something beautiful out of chaos. As the stars began to twinkle above, Elena whispered softly to herself, her voice carried away by the gentle breeze. To the galaxy, thank you for seeing us, and to humanity, keep reaching for the stars. Far beyond Earth, in the vast expanse of space, the echoes of humanity's triumph continued to ripple outward. The peace accord may have started as a trap, but it had become something far greater, a testament to the enduring power of hope, resilience, and unity. And though the journey was far from over, one thing was certain.